There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, The Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
Do you not wonder with me why it is that man who has harnessed the lightning, who rides the wind and reads the stars, has never been able to build for himself a far happier world in which to live? Marvel at your ingenious mechanical contrivances for convenience and pleasure. Devise your fabulous skyscrapers and luxury liners and wireless communications, jet planes as fast as sound. Release at the touch of a button your explosive energy equivalent to 1,000 million tons of TNT. But recognize with me that without mutual confidence and understanding in the realm of personal association or in international relations, the earth is as cold and as desolate as a wilderness. That science without love will serve only to destroy it. Now, whether we like to hear it or not, and however it manifests itself, in whatever form of coercion or tyranny, the world's most intense and tragic problem today, as always, is, in the familiar words of the poet, man's inhumanity to man. We turn to our distinguished mediators, who have probed deep into the human spirit and have the words and the wisdom to define that search. An eminent member of the bar, long a justice of the Supreme Court of his native state of New Jersey, Honorable William A. Wachenfeld, from one of the largest and most influential churches in the world, First Congregational of Los Angeles, California, and identified intimately with the Court of Human Relations since its origin on radio many years ago. A cordial welcome to Dr. L. Wendell Fifield.
As you say, I've been on this program for a long time. The last 4 years I've been in Southern California. I've been doing a great deal of lecturing before women's clubs and other organizations throughout that part of the state. And I don't think I've given a lecture at any time when at least one person has not come up to me and said, "You know, I used to hear you on that program from New York, the Court of Human Relations. It certainly was an interesting and a valuable program."
Well, thank you. So we have kept in touch all these years, and we hope that you take that jet plane many times in the future and keep with it. Well, we also want to present a notable figure in the life and letters of our time, spiritual leader of New York's great Temple Emmanuel, Dr. Nathan A. Perelman. All of us know that the central problem of the world is involved with this matter of man's ability to live harmoniously with other people. And we need channels of communication so that people are not strangers but come to know and respect one another. Now, where should the emphasis be placed in this very interesting and challenging issue? Here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board, my husband and I, we have some problems on the question of children's education at home. Seems to me it's difficult for the Chinese children in this country to study Chinese culture and language. But my husband strongly disagrees with me because of my desire for the assimilation of the children.
You want the children to be absorbed, to be assimilated?
That's right.
You have
yes.
children?
We have grandchildren. They are with us much of the time. And this argument with my husband always comes up, especially when he speaks Chinese to me and to the children about the most routine matters.
Yes. Now, what is your objection?
In this country, there are great many races. It is impossible, unwise, and unnecessary for each race to maintain its own language and identity. The adopted country is the United States, and the adopted language is English, but my husband does not agree.
Well, now suppose we hear from the respondent husband.
Mr. Alexander, member of the board, as far as I am concerned, I'm equally at home with a number of languages, including Chinese and English. However, since Chinese language and culture has a long history going back over 5,000 years and has contributed much to the civilization of the world, I resent any suggestion, whether it be it originates with my wife or with anyone else, that this culture and this language should be relegated into the ash pan or out of the window.
Well, now what about our public schools?
Well, if a child attends the American public school and receives the education that it has to offer, that is proper. I'm all for it. But in addition, the parents or the grandparents should provide him with the traditional language which is his birthright. In this case, it is Chinese.
To me, I think my husband should not speak Chinese in the family. He should use English for the purposes of assimilation.
For example?
If at the dinner table he says, "Pass the sugar," "Pass the bread," or "Please open the door," "doorbell," he uses Chinese language. I think this is a mistake. I think with his educational background, he should speak not only to me in Chinese, English, and also to the children, so that my own English could be improved as well as the children's.
Well, now, what about Chinese literature and Chinese culture?
As to study Chinese literature and culture, seems to me the children will be overtaxed if they have to study Chinese after the regular school hours.
Seems to me study is better than time wasted in the streets and in the movies. My wife looks upon this only as a matter of the moment and only in terms of expediency, but she overlooks the long-range significance.
Well, sir, what would you say is the long-range significance?
Mr. Alexander, there's an old Chinese saying, "What is obvious is often overlooked."
Well, would you repeat that?
What is obvious is often overlooked.
Do you feel that these little children should get, so what is obvious now?
Well, here are the young children with an opportunity to learn their traditional language. And why should it be denied them? At the United Nations, the Chinese is used as one of the official languages. The United States Office of Education has listed 6 critical foreign languages in our present-day world. You know what they are? Russian, Japanese, Burmese, Hindustan, Arabic, and the Chinese. A non-Chinese would consider it as a great achievement.
A person not Chinese would consider,
a non-Chinese would consider it as a great achievement if he has learned Chinese. And here in my home, speaking Chinese should be considered undesirable. The Chinese language has a long and honorable tradition. And we should, by every means, cherish and keep that tradition. It would be unthinkable if I should eliminate that tradition from my own home.
Well, my husband, he's thinking in terms of international relations, but I'm thinking in the interest of 2 young children. To make it easier for them to be assimilated into American lives, they have less problems.
Well, Dr. Fifield, I think this issue is clear.
Well, I would like to begin with the old Chinese proverb, what is obvious is often overlooked. Is that right?
Right.
And I think that that's one thing that's overlooked in this case, and that is that the primary issues are human, not issues of language. And those human issues, to me, find their first expression in the fact that here you have a matter of language producing a breach between these two fine people, this man and this woman. That's wrong. It should certainly be given up rather than to give up the fine love that they have with each other, and they shouldn't be arguing about it and talking about it all the time. And
well, Dr. Fifield, because we want to continue these proceedings, that is, have other proceedings, do you think it's wrong to have an exchange of opinion in order to find
oh, no,
truth?
But it's all right, but not to talk about it all the time. And the Chinese language is a fine language, but I think the interest of the children. I have 2 grandchildren who live in France, and they speak French better than they do English. And I know something about the problem that develops when that situation brings them into the age when they are associated with other children to a considerable degree. It produces very considerable problems for them.
Well, do you agree with the wife then?
I think that while it's a fine thing to know Chinese, I don't know it, but I think while it's a fine thing to know Chinese, I think these children ought to be brought up as Americans. And
Dr.
language
Perelman?
has its part.
I'd like to meet these children, to congratulate them, first of all, on having grandparents and the privilege of living with them. I'd like also to tell them how fortunate I think they are that they're spending their youth in this blessed country where children have a better chance than they have in most parts of the world. And I congratulate them also on the wonderful opportunity to have the best of 2 great cultures, one extremely old and one quite new and finding its way in the world. I wonder if the grandmother in this case would feel unhappy if you called upon other languages that you know to speak to your grandchildren, to close the door in French, in German, in Spanish, in other languages that seem to have greater meaning for us today and greater nearness because of our closer relationships with these people. One day, if you don't give to your grandchildren this wonderful opportunity to learn this great language and great literature, you'll have to pay huge tuition fees. They may find themselves in a college environment where it's not just the formal classwork that goes on, but the informal exchange between student and student. And as Chinese, they will be expected to know something and to have deeper feelings about the language and the culture. This might be learned by anyone, but as Chinese, it should have a special significance for them. And yet I would be very careful. I would be very careful to make this an exchange. For what you give to your young people in your Chinese tradition and culture, you make them pay back in the coin of this realm, in the American tradition and culture. Certainly I would be exceedingly careful not to allow this to become a question of tension for them, so that one day they may come to dislike one or the other culture when both have so much to love in them.
Well, Dr. Perelman, I know in your desire to be gracious, you indicated in your initial statement no disagreement with Dr. Fifield, but do I sense then from your remarks that you feel that perhaps Dr. Fifield is emphasizing too much the human angle? Do you feel, do we take it that you agree with the grandfather that by and large Chinese should be spoken in the home? That's the issue.
Oh, I think it should be. I would wish that my children had an opportunity, and my little grandchildren would have an opportunity to live in your house long enough to learn it. My little grandchild, Dr. Fifield, was born, my eldest grandchild, was born in France. She knows just 1 or 2 words of French. This enriches her young life. She knows it. It's something that she has that the other children she play with do not have. She'll lose nothing of what they can give to her. And they'll gain a great deal, your grandchildren, in your home from what you can give to them.
I think our difference of opinion is that I have no objection to having children learn other languages as an academic process, studying French, for example, even if they have to pay for it. But the thing that I hesitate about is to have another language made a part of the normal living of a home that is developing as American. Now that's very different. And I think therein is the peril. And as the children grow older, it may be that not alone will there be differences between these fine grandparents, but there also may be differences between the children and the grandparents, or the children themselves may differ one with the other if it's made a part of the normal living in the home.
Dr. Perelman?
No, I don't think that one needs to fear that. One needs to fear the spirit in which this is done. If you make your home a court, as this is a court at this moment, court of human relations, but if you make your home a place of love and understanding, and this instruction is given, it's infinitely better than the kind of instruction that can be gained in a classroom. This becomes a living language and a living culture, and has much more value than it would be if it were gained by a student. And so I'm all in favor of its coming in the home.
But if it did that, these folks wouldn't be here.
May I have something to say? Well, I have no objection to the question of assimilation. As a matter of fact, I love America. I love my children and grandchildren to be Americanized. But I think an all-round American today will have to speak or know several languages besides English. That's why the federal government is making every effort to develop the languages. At the U.S. Office of Education, a special branch has been set up called the Language Development. That was in line with the Congress Act, Defense Act Education.
You have the feeling, sir, that a person should not be prejudiced against his own language. Do you feel that as long as you're Chinese, that's no reason for declaring a boycott against Chinese?
All the more the Chinese children should keep the language.
At the same time, they have to learn more about America, the country that we adopted to. I think at the same time they will have to learn English too.
I have great respect for the absorptive capacity of the young mind. A few years ago, I went to Germany on a mission for the State Department. And in Hamburg, I was in the home of one of our America House representatives. And he had a little 6-year-old boy. He was asked a question in German and answered it in German. He was asked a question in Polish and answered it in Polish, in French, and he answered in French and in English. You had no doubt at all that this little boy was American. His mind was not cluttered, it was enriched. This boy was not having the best of one world, Detroit, where he was born, but he was having the best of the big world. And this is what you have an opportunity to give to your grandchildren. Don't miss it.
Well, Judge Wachenfeld?
Well, I've listened with a great deal of interest, and I'm afraid you'll have to put me down on the grandfather's side. I can very readily subscribe to the principle that foreign-born families who will migrate to this country should adopt our languages and our custom as rapidly as the circumstances will permit. But I think if you look at the record, you will find that they become Americanized, as you call it, very easily. Perhaps too rapidly, because they not only take the good part of our existence, but they take much of the bad part of our existence. And if these children in the home in which they're in, which is apparently one of refinement and culture, hear English spoken by everyone else excepting their grandfather, who keeps alive the language that he loves, the language of China, I don't think that it can be harmful to anybody, and I think it will be beneficial to the children, because China someday will be a great country. And when these children grow up, if they can speak the Chinese language fluently, they will have a wonderful asset and it isn't going to diminish their spirit for America, I'm sure.
Well, how can we have the children to be improve their English and a better life in this country?
It seems, Judge Walkenfeld, that this young woman is very much concerned about their citizenship as Americans. She wants them to be assimilated. She wants them to associate with others who are not necessarily Chinese, although she has no objection
all of which
to that.
will come in due course and with a rapidity which will surprise you, even though the grandfather continues on with his present practices.
I'd like to make just one minority statement, if I may, and that is that I'm not at all in opposition to speaking Chinese or Burmese or any other language. The thing that I am in opposition to is integrating a language other than our own into the home life, which is supposed to be American. Now, despite what my two distinguished colleagues here say, I stand absolutely by that position. When you bring the ordinary experiences of life, it's very different than teaching Chinese or French or something of that sort in a school. There it's academic, and there it's apart from normal, ordinary living.
Well, Dr. Fifield, do we understand that you take the position that the injection of a foreign language into a home makes that home un-American, notwithstanding everything else that's American about the home?
Well, it has a tendency to do so. If you say, bring me the bread in Chinese, that makes the matter of the bread a Chinese concept, to my mind. And well, as they grow up, why, that develops.
Well, suppose it's understood that that's done for cultural reasons and that there's nothing political about it.
The children don't understand that.
I haven't a crystal ball, but I think with the start that these children are getting, that the time will come when they will eat bread in a half a dozen different languages, and the concept of bread will not in any way be related to a tongue.
Well,
but if the bread that the children eat today is eaten in a home in which there is love and understanding and mutual exchange, and if the home is as receptive to the American culture as it wants to give and insinuate the Chinese culture, you will have an easy time. This is your sole problem. The problem of confusing the children, the problem of watering down their American cultural participation, I see no danger in that at all.
Well, that's, of course, what I said at the very start.
I'm sure.
Well, with a very, very slight demur from Dr. Fifield, the board appears to be in agreement that if the children have their regular public school education, and that is made the important thing, and the effort of the grandfather is in the direction of acquainting the children with the Chinese language and culture without creating any special problems, that no objection could possibly exist. On the contrary, that it could serve a good purpose. We bring another session of the Court of Human Relations to a close and extend our thanks to our mediators, Judge William A. Walkenfeld, Dr. L. Wendell Fifield, Dr. Nathan A. Perelman. Now, I see that we have a moment or two remaining, and in reflecting on today's proceedings, I'm reminded of Edwin Markham's poetic comment on brotherhood. The crest and crowning of all good, he says, life's final star is brotherhood. The concept of brotherhood, I think, is the basic element in mediation and the basic condition of every other good that exists. War, poverty, strikes, intolerance, persecution, hate. I ask which of these can be settled short of an application of brotherhood's law? And if that law be applied, which cannot be settled? Brotherhood, after all, is the final human relationship. If only we are brothers, then all things are possible. Brotherhood is a dream we keep apart from cynic's sneer and fool's derision, beyond the grasp of graph or chart. It is a hunger in the heart and in the soul, a vision.